Admiral Kyle Harrison stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the strange ships approach Earth's moon. The vessels were unlike anything he had ever seen. They moved smoothly through space, their hulls gleaming with a crystal-like surface that seemed to bend light around them. Each ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the largest human battleship. "Sir, they're requesting permission to dock," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from the communications station. Her voice carried a hint of nervousness that Kyle understood completely. This was humanity's first contact with an alien civilization, and no one knew what to expect. "Grant them docking bay 7, Kyle replied, straightening his uniform. "And alert President Morgan. She'll want to be here for this." The lead alien ship moved gracefully toward the station's largest docking port. As it drew closer, Kyle could see intricate patterns carved into its hull, designs that seemed both ancient and impossibly advanced. The ship docked with barely a vibration, showing a level of piloting skill that impressed even Kyle's experienced crew. Within an hour, President Lisa Morgan arrived at Luna Station aboard her official transport. She was a tall woman with graying hair and sharp eyes that had seen her through countless political battles on Earth. Today, those same eyes would witness something that would change humanity's place in the universe forever. "Any word on what they want?" Lisa asked as she joined Kyle on the observation deck. "Nothing yet," Kyle answered. "They've been silent since they docked. Our sensors show life signs aboard their ship, but we can't get clear readings on their biology." The waiting ended when the airlock doors opened and the aliens emerged. The first being through the door was tall and slender, standing nearly 8 feet in height. Its skin appeared to be made of living crystal, shifting between different shades of blue and purple as it moved. When it spoke, its voice came through a translation device attached to its chest. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Zenthari Empire," the alien said, its voice carrying a tone of authority. "I come bearing greetings from Supreme Commander Zorthak and the ruling council of our great empire." Lisa stepped forward, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. "I am President Lisa Morgan of the United Earth Government. Welcome to our solar system, Ambassador Veltar." The alien looked at her outstretched hand with what might have been curiosity before mimicking the gesture. Its crystal fingers were surprisingly warm to the touch. "Your species is young," Veltar observed as they walked toward the station's main conference room. "We have been monitoring your radio signals for several of your decades. You have only recently developed space travel beyond your home planet." "That's correct," Lisa replied. "We've been expanding our presence in the solar system for about 50 years now. This station and our colonies on Mars represent our furthest reach so far." Veltar nodded, making notes on a device that appeared to be grown rather than built. "This is as we expected. The Zenthari Empire has encountered many species at similar stages of development. We have a proposal that will benefit both our civilizations." They entered the conference room where Kyle had arranged for Earth's top diplomats and military leaders to be present. General Bob Wright, head of the Terran Defense Forces, sat alongside Dr. Nancy Price, Earth's leading xenobiologist. Several other officials filled the remaining seats, all trying to hide their amazement at seeing their first alien visitor. Veltar activated a holographic projector that filled the center of the room with a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems glowed with soft light, connected by lines that showed trade routes and communication networks. "The Zenthari Empire spans over 300 star systems," Veltar began, gesturing to the display. "We have brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds over the past 2,000 years. Our offer to humanity is simple. Join our empire willingly and receive the benefits of our protection and technology." Lisa leaned forward in her chair. "What exactly would joining your empire involve?" "Your species would become a client race under imperial protection," Veltar explained. "You would contribute raw materials from your world and solar system to the empire's needs. In return, we would provide basic technology upgrades and defend you from hostile forces in the galaxy." Kyle noticed something in the alien's tone that he didn't like. "And if we choose not to join?" Veltar's crystal features shifted in what might have been surprise. "Few species refuse the Empire's generous offer. Those who do typically find that independence in a hostile galaxy is far more difficult than they imagined. The room fell silent for a moment. Lisa exchanged glances with Kyle and the other Earth leaders. The threat was clear, even if it was delivered politely. "We appreciate your offer," Lisa said carefully, "but humanity has always valued its independence. We would prefer to remain autonomous while maintaining friendly relations with your empire." This time Veltar's reaction was definitely amusement, the crystal being actually made a sound that might have been laughter. "I have heard similar words from the leaders of many worlds, President Morgan. Independence is a luxury that young civilizations often believe they can afford." During the conversation, Veltar had been glancing occasionally through the conference room's large windows, which provided a clear view of the human ships docked at various points around Luna Station. Something about those vessels had caught his attention from the moment he arrived. The human ships were smaller than Zenthari vessels, but there was something unusual about their construction. The hull plating seemed to shimmer slightly, as if it were alive. The energy readings from their power cores were surprisingly strong for such a primitive civilization. Most puzzling of all, the ships seemed to have been built using manufacturing techniques that shouldn't have been possible for a species that had only recently developed interstellar travel. Veltar dismissed these observations. Young races often scavenged technology from abandoned alien sites or found artifacts left behind by older civilizations. It was nothing the Empire hadn't seen before. "I will give your species 1 standard year to consider our offer," Veltar announced as the meeting concluded. "During this time, you may send representatives to visit some of our client worlds and see the benefits of Imperial membership firsthand." As the alien delegation prepared to leave, Kyle walked with Veltar back toward the docking bay. "May I ask how many species have accepted your Empire's protection?" "All of them eventually," Veltar replied without hesitation. "The galaxy is a dangerous place, Admiral Harrison. Humanity will learn this truth in time." After the Zenthari ships departed, Kyle remained on the observation deck, watching them disappear into the darkness of space. Captain Jake Sullivan, his chief engineer, joined him at the window. "What do you think, sir?" Jake asked. "I think we just received our first ultimatum from the galaxy," Kyle replied. "And I don't think they have any idea what they're dealing with." Jake smiled grimly. "Should I start preparing the new ship designs?" Kyle nodded. "Yes, and Jake, let's make sure those ships are ready for anything." 6 months had passed since Ambassador Veltar's visit to Luna Station. Commander Maya Rodriguez sat in her office deep within Earth's Intelligence Command Center, reading through reports that made her stomach turn. The papers scattered across. Her desk told a disturbing story about what happened to species that refused the Zenthari Empire's generous offers. The merchant ship Lucky Star had been the first to bring back troubling news. Captain Steve Murphy had taken his small trading vessel to the Kepler system, hoping to establish contact with other civilizations. What he found there chilled him to the bone. The planet used to have cities, Steve had reported to Maya when he returned to Earth. Now there's nothing but empty buildings and farming equipment. The locals told me their population was cut in half 3 years ago. The Empire took half their people for what they called cultural exchange programs. Maya picked up another report from the cargo hauler Northern Wind. Captain Lisa Brooks had encountered a Zenthari patrol ship near the edge of human space. The aliens had boarded her vessel and spent hours examining every piece of technology they could find. They took samples of her ship's hull plating and copied the data from her navigation computers. They were very polite about it, Lisa had explained. But when I asked what they needed the samples for, they just said it was standard procedure for monitoring primitive species. The pattern was becoming clear. The Zenthari Empire didn't just conquer worlds through military force. They studied their targets, learned their weaknesses, and slowly drained them of resources and people until resistance became impossible. Maya gathered her reports and walked through the corridors of the command center toward the main briefing room. The Terran Council was meeting today to discuss humanity's response to the Empire's ultimatum. Half the year was already gone, and Earth's leaders still couldn't agree on what to do. The briefing room was filled with arguing voices when Maya entered. Counselor Peter Hayes was standing at the head of the table, his face red with frustration. "We cannot fight an empire that controls 300 star systems," Peter shouted. "Our entire fleet has less than 50 ships. They could send 1,000 vessels to crush us without even missing them." Counselor Ruth Adams shook her head firmly. "If we surrender now, we'll end up like every other client race. Our children will be taken away for their cultural programs. Our resources will be shipped off to feed their empire. Is that really the future you want for humanity?" Admiral Kyle Harrison sat quietly at one end of the table, listening to the debate with growing concern. Next to him, Dr. Carol Watson was reviewing her analysis of the biological samples the Zenthari had left behind during their visit. "The genetic data is fascinating," Carol whispered to Kyle. "Their species hasn't changed in thousands of years. They've achieved perfect genetic stability, but at a cost. They've lost the ability to adapt quickly to new situations." Maya took her place at the table and waited for a break in the arguing. When the room finally quieted, she stood and activated the wall display. "I've received 17 reports from our merchant ships over the past 6 months," Maya began. "Every single one tells the same story. The Zenthari Empire is already studying us. They're taking samples from our ships, monitoring our communications, and learning everything they can about our technology and culture." The display showed a map of human space with red dots marking each encounter with Zenthari forces. The dots formed a clear pattern, showing that the aliens were slowly closing in on Earth's solar system. "They're not waiting for our answer," Maya continued. "They're preparing for conquest whether we agree to join them or not." Counselor Hayes slammed his hand on the table. "Then we have no choice but to surrender. At least if we join willingly, we might get better treatment than the species they conquered by force." Admiral Harrison finally spoke. "Maya's intelligence. Reports confirm what Captain Sullivan and I have suspected for months. The Empire's strength comes from their size and experience, but they have weaknesses too." Kyle activated his own display, showing detailed scans of the Zenthari ships that had visited Luna Station. "Their vessels are impressive, but they're built using designs that are thousands of years old. Every ship follows the same basic pattern. Their weapons, shields, and engines all use proven technology that hasn't changed in centuries." Dr. Watson added her findings to the discussion. "The Zenthari have achieved stability by avoiding change. Their entire civilization is based on using what has worked before, rather than developing new solutions. This makes them predictable." "Predictable doesn't matter when they have overwhelming numbers," Peter argued. "It might matter more than you think," Kyle replied. "Captain Sullivan has been working with our best engineers for the past 6 months. The ships we're building now are unlike anything the galaxy has seen before." Maya pulled up classified footage from the Titan shipyards. The massive construction facility near Saturn was working around the clock, building vessels that seemed to defy conventional spacecraft design. Some ships appeared to change shape as they moved through space. Others seemed to phase in and out of visual sensors. "Our new adaptive hull technology allows our ships to reconfigure themselves during combat," Kyle explained. "The AI systems we've developed can learn and evolve tactics in real time. Most importantly, every human ship is unique. We don't build from standard templates like the Empire does." Counselor Adams leaned forward with interest. "How many of these new ships do we have?" 37 are complete, with more finishing. Construction every week," Kyle answered. "They're not just ships. They're something entirely new." Captain Ben Parker, who had been overseeing construction at Titan, entered the briefing room with an update. "Sir, the UES Defiance just completed its test flight. The adaptive systems exceeded all expectations. The ship actually improved its own design during the flight based on performance data." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just building better ships. They were building ships that could become better on their own. Maya looked around the table, at the faces of Earth's leaders. The fear was still there, but it was being replaced by something else. Hope. "The Empire expects us to follow the same pattern as every other species they've encountered," Maya said. "They expect us to either surrender or fight with conventional tactics using predictable technology. But what if we do something they've never seen before?" Dr. Watson smiled for the first time in months. The Xanthari have spent 2,000 years perfecting the art of conquering civilizations that think like they do. But humanity has never thought like anyone else. Admiral Harrison stood and walked to the display showing the approaching Xanthari patrol routes. We have 6 months left before they expect our answer. I recommend we spend that time showing them exactly what humans are capable of building. The vote was closer than Maya had hoped, but the Council ultimately decided to reject the Empire's ultimatum. Earth would prepare for war, but it would be a war fought with weapons and tactics that the galaxy had never seen. As the meeting ended, Kyle remained behind with Maya and Carol. Through the briefing room's windows, they could see construction, lights twinkling around Saturn's rings where the shipyards continued their work. "Do you really think we can win?" Maya asked. Kyle watched another new ship launch from the Titan facility. Its hull shifted and flowed like liquid metal as it tested its adaptive systems. "I think the Empire is about to discover that humans don't build ships like anyone else," Kyle replied, "and that might be exactly what we need." The alarm bells echoed through every human settlement from Earth to the outer colonies. Long-range sensors had detected them first, massive energy signatures appearing at the edge of the solar system like stars being born in the darkness of space. 300 Xanthari warships had just dropped out of hyperspace, bringing with them the full weight of an empire that had never known defeat. Admiral Kyle Harrison stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching the tactical display as more enemy ships continued to appear. Each red dot on the screen represented a vessel capable of destroying entire cities. Together they formed a fleet that could reduce Earth's civilization to ashes within hours. "Final count is 312 ships," reported Lieutenant Amy Carter, her voice steady despite the enormity of what they faced. "The lead vessel is broadcasting identification as the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory." Kyle nodded grimly. The Empire had not sent a patrol or a demonstration force. They had sent an armada designed to end all resistance permanently. At the center of that vast fleet was Supreme Commander Zorthak himself, a being whose name was whispered in fear across dozens of conquered worlds. Captain Jake Sullivan's voice crackled over the communication system from the newly completed UES Defiance. "Sir, all human ships are reporting ready status. The adaptive systems are already beginning to optimize for combat conditions." Kyle looked at the human fleet positioning itself near Mars. 47 ships against more than 300. The numbers were impossible, but the ships themselves were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each vessel was unique, built using technology that seemed to bend the rules of physics and engineering. President Lisa Morgan's image appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from the secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. Her face was calm but determined as she addressed the nation and the colonies. "My fellow humans," Lisa began, "today we face the greatest challenge in our species' history. An alien empire that has conquered hundreds of worlds now demands our surrender. They offer us slavery disguised as protection. They promise us peace at the cost of our freedom." The speech was being broadcast on every frequency, reaching every human settlement in the solar system. On Mars, in the asteroid mining stations, aboard the deep space research vessels, millions of people listened to their president's words. "But we are not like the other species this empire has conquered," Lisa continued. "We are humans. We have never bowed to those who would make us slaves. We have never accepted that something cannot be done simply because it has never been done before. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of." Supreme Commander Zorthak watched the human broadcast from the bridge of his flagship. The alien commander was ancient even by Xanthari standards, having personally overseen the conquest of 43 worlds. His crystalline features showed no emotion as he listened to the translation of the human president's defiant words. "They all say such things at first," Zorthak remarked to his aide, Commander Velkoth. "The Altarians spoke of their warrior traditions. The Betelgeuse colony boasted of their advanced technology. The Vegan Republic claimed their democratic ideals made them unbeatable. All of them learned that defiance is merely the final stage before acceptance." Velkoth studied the tactical display showing the human fleet. "Their ships appear to be positioning for battle rather than retreat. Should we begin the bombardment of their planetary targets to encourage surrender?" Zorthak considered the question. Standard Imperial doctrine called for destroying several major cities to demonstrate the futility of resistance. However, something about the human ships troubled him. They moved differently than other vessels he had encountered, flowing through space in patterns that seemed almost organic. Not yet, Zorthak decided. Let us see what these humans believe they can accomplish with their handful of ships. It will make their eventual surrender more complete when they realize the hopelessness of their situation. Dr. Nick Thompson floated in the zero-gravity laboratory aboard the UES Liberty, studying the energy readings from the approaching Xanthari fleet. As the head of humanity's Xenotechnology Research Division, he had spent months analyzing every piece of data they had collected about Empire technology. The pattern is exactly what we expected, Nick reported to Admiral Harrison over the secure channel. Every ship in their fleet uses the same basic power signature. Same shield frequencies, same weapon types, same propulsion systems. They've standardized everything. From the bridge of the UES Shadow, Commander Maya Rodriguez smiled as she watched her stealth ships disappear from sensors. The new dimensional phase technology allowed human vessels to exist partially outside normal space, making them nearly impossible to detect or target with conventional weapons. All ghost ships are in position, Maya reported. The Empire's sensors can't track us when we're phased. They're scanning for threats using technology that's thousands of years old. Captain Ben Parker felt his ship, the UES Resolute, responding to his thoughts through the neural interface connection. The adaptive hull was already reshaping itself, streamlining for maximum speed and maneuverability. Around him, the bridge crew worked in perfect harmony with their AI assistants, preparing for combat in ways that would have seemed like magic to previous generations. The Xanthari fleet continued its slow advance toward the inner solar system, maintaining the tight formation that had served the Empire well in countless previous battles. Zorthak's ships moved like a single massive organism, each vessel knowing its exact role in the coming destruction. 24 hours, the Supreme Commander broadcast to Earth on all frequencies. You have 24 hours to surrender unconditionally and accept integration into the Xanthari Empire. After that time, we will begin orbital bombardment of your major population centers. Resistance is futile. Submission is inevitable. The message was received in the command centers of every human military installation. On Earth, President Morgan gathered with her cabinet to make the final decision about humanity's response. The easy choice was surrender. The safe choice was to save lives by accepting defeat before the battle began. Lisa looked around the room, at the faces of her advisors. Fear was written on every face, but beneath that fear was something else. Something that had driven humanity from caves to cities, from Earth to the stars, from weakness to strength despite every obstacle they had ever faced. Send our response, Lisa ordered. The reply went out on the same frequencies the Empire had used for their ultimatum. It was brief, direct, and unmistakably human. This is President Lisa Morgan of the United Earth Government. We reject your ultimatum. We reject your empire. We reject your assumption that humanity will bow to threats or accept slavery. You want our solar system? Come and take it. Admiral Harrison received confirmation of the President's message aboard Luna Station. Around him, his staff prepared for the impossible battle that was now only hours away. The odds were overwhelming. The enemy was experienced and powerful. By every reasonable calculation, humanity was about to be wiped from existence. But as Kyle watched his ships take their final positions, he felt something that the Xanthari Empire had forgotten in their thousands of years of easy victories. He felt the fierce joy of a species that had never learned to quit, never accepted defeat, and never stopped believing that the impossible was just another problem waiting for the right solution. All ships, Kyle broadcast to the human fleet. This is Admiral Harrison. Today we show the galaxy that humans don't build ships like anyone else. Today we prove that Earth's children bow to no empire. All vessels advance and engage the enemy. The battle for humanity's freedom was about to begin. The first shots of the battle lit up the darkness between Mars and Jupiter like deadly fireworks. Supreme Commander Zorthak had ordered his fleet to advance in the standard Imperial formation that had crushed resistance on 43 worlds. 300 massive warships moved forward in perfect lines, their weapons charging and shields at maximum power. Admiral Kyle Harrison watched from Luna Station as his tiny fleet of 47 ships raced toward the approaching armada. To any outside observer, it looked like a suicide charge by a hopelessly outnumbered force. But Kyle knew something that the Zenthari commander did not. Human ships were not built like any other vessels in the galaxy. The first surprise came when the human fleet reached weapons range. Captain Ben Parker's ship, the UES Resolute, suddenly flattened itself like a pancake, presenting almost no target profile to the enemy gunners. At the same time, weapons ports opened along its entire hull surface, giving it more firepower than should have been possible for such a compact design. "Impossible," muttered Commander Velkoth from the bridge of the Zenthari flagship. "Ships cannot change shape during combat. The structural stress would tear them apart." But the UES Resolute was not alone in its transformation. All around it, human ships began reshaping themselves in response to combat conditions. Some stretched into long, narrow forms to maximize speed. Others expanded into wide, flat configurations to spread incoming fire across a larger area. Each vessel found its own perfect shape for the battle ahead. Captain Jake Sullivan felt his ship, the UES Defiance, responding to the tactical situation with lightning speed. The AI systems were processing thousands of combat scenarios every second, sharing information instantly with every other human vessel. Within minutes of the first exchange of fire, the entire human fleet was fighting as a single organism with 47 different bodies. The Zenthari weapons were powerful, designed to punch through the heaviest armor and strongest shields that conventional technology could produce. But the adaptive hull plating on human ships was not conventional. When enemy fire struck the UES Liberty, Dr. Nick Thompson watched in amazement as the hull absorbed the energy and used it to strengthen itself. "The molecular structure is actually improving under fire," Nick reported to Admiral Harrison. "Each hit makes our ship stronger instead of weaker." Supreme Commander Zorthak ordered his fleet to tighten formation and concentrate fire on individual human targets. This tactic had always worked before. Overwhelming firepower focused on single ships would destroy them one by one until the enemy force collapsed. But something went wrong. When 50 Zenthari ships focused their weapons on the UES Guardian, the other human vessels did something unprecedented. They extended their shield systems outward, linking together to form a protective barrier around their damaged companion. The combined shield network was strong enough to absorb the concentrated fire, while the Guardian repaired itself. "Sir, the human ships are sharing power and shield energy," reported the Zenthari tactical officer. "We have never encountered technology like this before." Commander Maya Rodriguez smiled as her stealth ships, invisible to Zenthari sensors, struck at the enemy fleet's flanks. The UES Shadow and its sister ships appeared from nowhere, fired devastating volleys at surprised enemy vessels, and vanished again before return fire could find them. The phase technology that allowed human ships to slip partially out of normal space was completely unknown to the Empire. Zenthari gunners found themselves shooting at targets that flickered in and out of existence, sometimes solid and sometimes like ghosts, that weapons passed through harmlessly. "They are using some form of dimensional manipulation," Velkoth reported to his commander. "Our sensors cannot maintain targeting locks on ships that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." But the greatest shock came when the human ships began to learn during the battle itself. The AI systems controlling each vessel were not just following programmed instructions. They were adapting, evolving, and improving their tactics with every passing minute. Captain Parker watched his weapon systems reconfigure themselves to exploit weaknesses in Zenthari shields that the AI had discovered through trial and error. The ship's learning algorithms had identified the exact frequency needed to penetrate enemy defenses, then shared that information with every other human vessel instantly. Zorthak realized that his fleet was not fighting 47 separate ships. He was fighting a single intelligence that had 47 different ways to attack him. Every human vessel learned from the experiences of all the others, creating a collective combat intelligence that grew stronger with each engagement. The turning point came after 6 hours of continuous battle. Captain Sullivan's engineering team managed to implement a real-time modification that allowed human ships to temporarily merge their hulls with damaged allies. The UES Courage, badly hurt by concentrated enemy fire, was suddenly surrounded by 3 other ships that physically connected with it, sharing power, resources, and structural integrity. "This is beyond our understanding," Velkoth admitted to his commander. "They are not using ships as we know them. They are using some form of living technology that can change and adapt in ways that should not be possible." The battle raged for 18 hours, and with each passing hour, the impossible became more obvious. The Zenthari fleet, despite having 7 times more ships, was losing. Human vessels that should have been destroyed were instead becoming more efficient. Tactics that should have worked were being countered by adaptations that the Empire had never encountered. Admiral Harrison watched the tactical display with growing amazement. Not only were his ships surviving against impossible odds, they were winning. The adaptive technology was performing beyond even his most optimistic predictions. "Sir, we're receiving damage reports from across the Zenthari fleet," Lieutenant Amy Carter announced. "They've lost 163 ships. Their formation is beginning to break apart." Dr. Carol Watson, monitoring the battle from Earth, made a discovery that explained everything. "The Zenthari have been using the same battle tactics for thousands of years," she reported. "They've perfected their methods, but perfection means they cannot change. Our ships learn and adapt because we never believed anything was perfect enough to stop improving." Supreme Commander Zorthak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Half his fleet was gone. The remaining ships were in disorder, their crews panicked by an enemy that fought in ways they could not understand or counter. For the first time in his long military career, he was facing defeat. "Commander, we must retreat," Velkoth urged. "Our ships cannot adapt to match their technology. Every minute we remain, we lose more vessels to an enemy we cannot effectively fight." The great Zenthari war machine, which had conquered hundreds of worlds and subjugated countless species, was being systematically dismantled by 47 ships built by a species that refused to accept the word impossible. Zorthak gave the order that no Zenthari commander had ever given before. "All ships withdraw to minimum safe distance. Prepare for emergency hyperspace jump." The retreat began as human ships continued their relentless advance, their adaptive hulls gleaming with the light of weapons that grew more effective with each shot fired. The silence that followed the Zenthari retreat was unlike anything Admiral Kyle Harrison had ever experienced. For the first time in 18 hours, the space around Mars was quiet, except for the gentle hum of human ships checking their systems and counting their victories. The impossible had happened. Humanity had not just survived an attack by the galaxy's greatest empire. They had won. Captain Ben Parker's voice came through the communication system from the UES Resolute. "Admiral, all human ships are reporting minimal damage. Most of our vessels actually improved their performance during the battle. The adaptive systems exceeded every prediction we made." Kyle looked at the tactical display where the retreating Zenthari fleet was limping toward the edge of the solar system. Nearly half of Supreme Commander Zorthak's ships had been destroyed or disabled. The survivors were fleeing in disorder, their perfect formations broken and their legendary discipline shattered. "Should we pursue and finish them?" asked Captain Jake Sullivan from the UES Defiance. Kyle considered the question carefully. The human fleet could probably destroy the remaining Zenthari ships before they escaped. It would be a complete victory that would send a clear message throughout the galaxy about humanity's military power. "Negative," Kyle decided. "All ships, maintain position and escort the Zenthari fleet to the edge of our system. Ensure their safe departure." The decision surprised many of his officers, but Kyle understood something important. Destroying the fleeing ships would make humanity look like conquerors. Allowing them to leave safely would demonstrate something far more powerful. It would show that humans fought only to defend themselves, not to destroy others. On the bridge of the Zenthari flagship Eternal Glory, Supreme Commander Zorthak struggled to understand what had happened to his forces. In a single day, his reputation as an unbeatable military leader had been destroyed by a species that had only recently developed interstellar travel. "Sir, the human ships are following us but not attacking," reported Commander Velkoth. "They appear to be ensuring our safe withdrawal rather than pursuing for total victory." This act of mercy was perhaps more shocking to Zorthak than the military defeat itself. In the Empire's long history, no enemy had ever shown restraint after gaining the upper hand in battle. Species either surrendered or were destroyed. There was no middle ground. "Prepare a message to the human fleet," Zorthak ordered. "I wish to speak with their commander." Minutes later, Admiral Harrison's face appeared on the main screen of the Zenthari flagship. The human leader looked tired but alert, showing none of the triumph that Zorthak would have expected from a victorious general. "Supreme Commander," Kyle said formally, "your ships are free to leave our system whenever you choose. We have no desire to pursue or harm your retreating forces." Zorthak studied the human's face, searching for signs of deception or hidden motives. "Why do you show mercy to an enemy that came to conquer your world?" "Because conquest was never our goal," Kyle replied. "We fought to defend our freedom, not to destroy yours. Your people are welcome in our space as friends and equals, but never again as conquerors." The conversation was being recorded and transmitted throughout both fleets. Human crews listened with pride to their admiral's words, while Zenthari officers heard something they had never encountered before. A victor who offered peace instead of demanding submission. Back on Earth, President Lisa Morgan addressed the world with news that many people had thought they would never hear. "My fellow humans, our fleet has successfully defended our solar system against the Zenthari Empire. Our losses were minimal, and our freedom remains intact." The celebration that followed was unlike anything in human history. From the colonies on Mars to the mining stations in the asteroid belt, millions of people celebrated not just their survival, but their emergence as a major power in the galaxy. Dr. Carol Watson was already analyzing the implications of humanity's victory. "News of this battle will spread throughout the Empire within weeks," she told the Terran Council. "Other species that have lived under Zenthari rule for centuries will begin to question whether the Empire is truly invincible." She was right. Within days of the battle, reports began arriving from across the galaxy. On the mining world of Kepler Prime, workers had stopped production and demanded better treatment from their Zenthari overseers. The agricultural planet of New Harvest had declared independence and requested human assistance in defending themselves. Ambassador Veltar, who had first visited Earth with promises of imperial protection, now found himself in an impossible position. He had to return to the Zenthari capital world of Kethmore and explain how a primitive species had defeated the Empire's greatest fleet. The emergency session of the Zenthari High Council was unlike any meeting in the Empire's 2,000-year history. For the first time, the council members were discussing military defeat rather than conquest. "The humans fight with technology we do not understand," Veltar reported to the assembled leaders. "Their ships learn and adapt during battle. They share information and resources in ways that make them stronger as the fight continues. Most importantly, they think in ways that we cannot predict." Elder Zormak, the oldest member of the council, spoke with a voice that carried the weight of centuries. "Our empire has grown powerful by perfecting our methods and using them without change. But perfection means we cannot improve. These humans seem to believe that everything can be made better." Dr. Nick Thompson's analysis of the battle data revealed the true secret of humanity's success. "We didn't win because we built better ships," he explained to President Morgan. "We won because we built ships that could become better. The Zenthari technology is impressive, but it's static. Our technology lives and grows." 3 months after the battle, Admiral Harrison received an unexpected message from Supreme Commander Zorthak. The Zenthari leader was requesting a formal peace treaty and proposing a new relationship between their civilizations. "The Empire acknowledges that humanity represents a new type of civilization," the message stated. "We propose a partnership based on mutual respect rather than domination. In exchange for sharing your approach to adaptive technology, we offer access to our historical archives and established trade networks." The proposal sparked intense debate on Earth. Some leaders wanted to reject any deal with the Empire that had threatened their freedom. Others saw an opportunity to help other oppressed species throughout the galaxy. Captain Maya Rodriguez, now promoted to admiral after her success with the stealth fleet, offered her perspective to the council. The Empire is changing because we forced them to change. If we work with them, we can help them become something better than conquerors. President Morgan made the final decision. We will negotiate with the Xanthari Empire, but on our terms. Any agreement must include freedom for all client species and an end to their conquest policies. As new human ships launched from the expanded shipyards around Saturn, each one unique in design and capability, Kyle Harrison reflected on how much had changed. Humanity had entered the galactic community, not as subjects or conquerors, but as innovators who proved that the impossible was just another problem waiting for the right solution. The Empire's shock at human shipbuilding had become something more important. It had become the beginning of a new age where growth and adaptation mattered more than size and tradition. And at the center of that change was a species that had never learned to accept that something couldn't be done simply because it had never been done before.